October 2026, the point of no return has been crossed. All diplomatic bridges are burned. In the sealed environment of the White House Situation Room, a command is issued that will shatter the world order. Execute Operation Icebreaker. The United States of America is launching a full-scale military invasion of Greenland, a sovereign territory of the Kingdom of Denmark, a founding member of NATO. This is not a policing action or a show of force. This is a calculated, preemptive war of conquest against a treaty ally. We are about to witness the first major armed conflict between two advanced Western democracies. The question is no longer if, but how and at what unimaginable cost. The opening act of the war is invisible, silent, and digital. At H-10, a wave of AI-driven cyber weapons from U.S. Cyber Command slams into Denmark's digital infrastructure. The targets are precise: military command networks in Copenhagen and Nuuk, early warning radar sites at Thule and Skanderborg, and Greenland's fragile civilian power grid. Satellite feeds are hijacked, showing looped footage of empty skies. Communications between Danish frigates and their command are severed. For the defenders, the modern battlefield is stripped away before the first shot is fired, leaving them deaf, dumb, and blind in the face of the storm. The physical storm arrives from three directions simultaneously. From Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, having flown a circuitous Arctic route, release their payloads. Dozens of AGM-158 BJA-SS Emma stealth cruise missiles, with a range of over 500 miles, streak towards Greenland. Their targets are not population centers, but the island's strategic arteries, the runways at Kangerlussuaq and Narsarsuaq airfields, port facilities in Nuuk and Sisimiut, and hardened command bunkers. Concrete and steel erupt into the frigid air, denying Denmark its key logistical hubs. From the east, the sea itself erupts. The USS Gerald, our Ford carrier strike group, having moved under electronic silence into the Denmark Strait, goes to full combat power. Electromagnetic catapults on the Ford's deck hurl F-35C Lightning to fighters into the dim Arctic sky. Their mission is absolute: establish total air dominance over the North Atlantic approaches to Greenland. Supporting them, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers like the USS Thomas Hudner activate their Aegis combat systems, their radars painting the horizon for any airborne threat. The first conventional resistance is brave, brief, and doomed. A flight of 4 Royal Danish Air Force F-16AM Fighting Falcons, operating on last-generation radars and pre-cyberatic orders, manages to scramble from their alert posture. They turn to intercept the incoming swarms of U.S. Navy FJ-180AF Super Hornets, now supplementing the F-35s. In a swirling dogfight over the ice-choked sea, the Danish pilots demonstrate exceptional skill, downing to Super Hornets with AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles. But they are overwhelmed by numbers and technological invisibility. The F-35s, unseen on their radars, engage from beyond visual range. Within minutes, all 4 Danish fighters are flaming wrecks plunging into the ocean. With air superiority established, the invasion of the coastline begins. This is the domain of Special Operations and the United States Marine Corps. At H-90, the Spearhead strikes Nuuk, a squadron of Air Force CV-2 Ospreys, escorted by Apache attack helicopters, races at low level over the fjords. Their cargo, Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. The Ospreys perform a dramatic, low-hover insertion over the rooftops of the Inatsisart, Greenland's parliament, and key government communications towers. Rangers fast-rope down, securing the political heart of the nation in a matter of minutes. Their rules of engagement are strict but clear. Neutralize all armed resistance. The main amphibious assault follows. From well decks of amphibious transport docks like the USS Portland, landing craft, air cushion LCAC hovercraft, and next-generation Ship 2 shore connectors SSC roar towards preselected beaches near Nuuk and the critical Kangerlussuaq gateway. They carry the first wave of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Brigade, a force of over 8,000 Marines. Their new amphibious combat vehicles, ACVS, grind ashore, meeting initial small arms and mortar fire from elements of the Danish Army Guard Regiment and the Greenlandic Home Guard. These defenders, though outgunned, use the brutal, rocky terrain to their advantage, inflicting early casualties on the Marines and forcing a brutal, close-quarters fight for the port facilities. Denmark's military, though small, is technologically sophisticated and refuses to capitulate. Its navy delivers a stinging counterpunch. The Iver-Huitfeldt-class frigate HDMS Peter Willemoes, using the intricate network of coastal fjords as a radar-shadowed highway, maneuvers into firing position. It unleashes a salvo of our GM-80 for Harpoon Block II anti-ship missiles towards the U.S. invasion fleet. One missile evades the layered defenses, striking the USS Forrest Sherman, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, on its stern. The explosion ignites a fierce fire, crippling the ship and claiming dozens of sailors' lives. It is a shocking, televised proof that the U.S. fleet is not invulnerable, but the most profound psychological threat is hidden. Denmark's Type 112 submarines, among the quietest conventional submarines in the world, slip their moorings. In the acoustically complex, near-freezing waters of the Arctic, they become ghosts. Their mission is not to win the battle, but to paralyze the enemy. The mere suspected presence of these air-independent propulsion boats forces the entire U.S. carrier group to devote massive resources to anti-submarine warfare, with P-8 Poseidon aircraft and helicopters constantly hunting a foe they cannot find. The specter of a submarine-launched torpedo striking a carrier or a troopship hangs over every U.S. admiral's head. The global political reaction is instantaneous and catastrophic for the United States. As live footage of burning Danish F-16s and the stricken USS Forrest Sherman floods global news networks, the European Union separate from the paralyzed NATO takes historic action. For the first time, it invokes the Mutual Defense Clause, Article 42(7) of the Lisbon Treaty. A combined European naval task force, dubbed Operation Guardian, is assembled with shocking speed. Led by the French nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle and including German Baden-Württemberg-class frigates and British Type 45 destroyers, it sets sail from Brest with declared intent to establish a maritime exclusion zone around Greenland and protect European sovereignty. The Atlantic Ocean, once a NATO lake, is now divided between two hostile fleets. On the ground in Greenland, the rapid seizure of coastal objectives gives way to the grim reality of occupying an Arctic wilderness the size of Western Europe. Over 35,000 U.S. Army and Marine personnel are now ashore, but they control only dots on a vast, white map. The legendary Danish Sirius Patrol, the military dog sled unit that patrols the remote northeast, transitions into a lethal guerrilla force. Operating in teams of 6, they use their unparalleled knowledge of the ice sheet to survive and strike. Employing FGM-148 Javelin anti-tank missiles, they ambush isolated U.S. supply convoys moving along the fragile road network, melting back into the tundra before Apache gunships can respond. The U.S. response is a relentless, robotic hunt. Squadrons of Switchblade 300 and 600 loitering munitions kamikaze drones are launched to scour the ice fields. Larger MQ-9 Reapers and stealthy XQ-58A Valkyrie drones provide constant surveillance. The war descends into a technologically advanced but deeply personal brutality, fought in whiteout blizzards and 24-hour darkness. The consequences bleed far beyond the Arctic. In Moscow and Beijing, the schism in the West is seen as a historic opportunity. A massive, coordinated cyberattack attributed to Russian state actors but undenounced by China crashed the New York Stock Exchange and the SWIFT financial messaging system for 72 hours, triggering a global liquidity crisis. China announces routine naval exercises in the Taiwan Strait, a clear message of opportunistic pressure. The post-1945 international system, built on American-led alliances, collapses into chaotic, multipolar rivalry. By day 30 of the conflict, the United States achieves a military objective. Organized Danish military resistance on Greenland is broken. Nuuk is under martial law. But the victory is purely tactical and catastrophically strategic. American casualties exceed 3,000, with hundreds more to frostbite and the psychological toll of a guerrilla war without end. Politically, the nation is a global pariah. NATO is functionally dead, with European members expelling U.S. forces from bases across the continent. The US and EU have enacted mutually devastating trade wars. The global economy is in a downward spiral. The final, haunting image is not of a flag being raised, but of a people withdrawing. The 56,000 citizens of Greenland do not surrender. They simply disappear into the vastness of their own land, fostering a simmering, permanent resistance supported by a unified and furious Europe. The United States seized a frozen island, but in the process, it sacrificed every pillar of its global power, its alliances, its moral authority, its economic stability, and its strategic focus. It won a barren, hostile possession and lost the world it built. The ice of Greenland remains, a silent, costly tomb for American hegemony.